Have you ever seen Jungkook, the global superstar known for his perfection, his strength, his almost unreal aura, suddenly become completely still, vulnerable, and silent, while someone else takes control in a way no one ever expected? And what if, in that exact moment, Jimin, who knows him better than almost anyone, couldn't hide his shock? Because something happened, something so unexpected, so strangely intimate, and yet so undeniably human, that fans all over the world are still trying to understand it. What really happened when Choo Sung Hoon leaned in and began cleaning Jungkook's ear right in front of Jimin? Was it just a funny moment? Or was there something deeper hidden behind Jungkook's stillness, behind Jimin's reaction, behind the silence that suddenly filled the room? Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover is not just a viral clip, but a rare glimpse into the unfiltered reality of two global icons, a moment that blurred the line between comedy, trust, and something far more emotional than anyone expected, because this was not supposed to be a moment that shook the internet. And yet, it did. The clip didn't start dramatically. There was no music swelling in the background, no grand stage, no flashing lights. It began in a simple, almost ordinary setting, the kind that usually wouldn't attract millions of eyes. And yet somehow, this quiet, almost mundane situation became the center of global attention within hours. Jungkook was there, calm as always, his presence carrying that familiar mix of confidence and quiet intensity. Next to him, Jimin, observant, expressive, always ready to react with genuine emotion. And then there was Choo Sung Hoon, a man known for his strength, his discipline, his presence as a fighter, stepping into a situation that no one could have predicted. First, it felt like a joke, something light, something playful. But then, something shifted. As Choo Sung Hoon leaned closer to Jungkook, there was a pause, a subtle hesitation in the air, as if even the moment itself wasn't sure where it was going. Jungkook didn't pull away. He didn't laugh. He didn't turn it into a joke. He stayed still, completely still. And that's when Jimin's expression changed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't exaggerated. But if you look closely, you can see it. The flicker of surprise, the slight widening of his eyes, the moment where even he, someone who has spent years by Jungkook's side, seemed caught off guard. Because this wasn't just funny anymore. This was strange, unexpected, almost intimate in a way that no one had prepared for. And yet, Jungkook allowed it. That alone became the center of the conversation. Fans began asking questions immediately. Why did Jungkook stay so still? Why didn't he react? Why did Jimin look so shocked? And perhaps the most intriguing question of all, what does this say about the trust between them? Because trust is not always shown in grand gestures. Sometimes, it appears in the smallest, quietest moments. Moments where you allow yourself to be vulnerable, even in front of cameras, even in front of millions of people who will analyze every second. And Jungkook, in that moment, did exactly that. He let his guard down. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way that screamed for attention. But in a quiet, almost invisible way that only those who truly pay attention could understand. Meanwhile, Jimin's reaction became a story of its own. Jimin has always been expressive. His emotions are never hidden, never forced. When he's surprised, you see it. When he's amused, you feel it. And when something truly catches him off guard, it shows in the most honest way possible. And that's exactly what happened here. There was a moment, a split second, where Jimin seemed to process what he was seeing. As if his mind was trying to catch up with reality. Is this really happening? Is Jungkook actually letting this happen? And perhaps even deeper, is he okay with this? Because Jimin knows Jungkook, not the global idol. Not the superstar seen on stage, but the person behind it all. The one who laughs freely, who gets shy, who sometimes hides his feelings behind a smile. And that's why his reaction mattered. Because it wasn't just the reaction of a viewer. It was the reaction of someone who understands. And that's what made this moment explode across the internet. It wasn't just about ear cleaning. It wasn't just about a random, funny interaction. It was about the dynamic. The unspoken communication, the silent trust. Within hours, clips began circulating everywhere. Social media platforms were flooded with edits, reactions, slow-motion replays of that exact moment when Choo Sung Hoon leaned in, when Jungkook stayed still, when Jimin's expression shifted. Army began analyzing every detail. Some found it hilarious, some found it oddly touching, some couldn't stop replaying it, trying to understand why it felt so different from anything they had seen before. Because it wasn't staged. It didn't feel scripted. It felt real, and in a world where idols are often seen through perfectly curated images, moments like this become rare treasures, moments where perfection fades and reality quietly takes its place. But perhaps the most unexpected part of all of this was Jungkook himself, because despite everything, despite the awkwardness, despite the unusual situation, he didn't break the moment, he didn't laugh it off, that he didn't turn away, he trusted the process. And that raised even more questions. Was he simply being polite? Was he trying to keep the atmosphere light? Or was there something deeper, a level of comfort and trust that allowed him to remain completely at ease in such an unusual situation? And if that's the case, what does that say about Jungkook? What does that reveal about the person behind the global icon? Because sometimes, the smallest moments reveal the biggest truths, and this moment, no matter how strange it may seem on the surface, might be one of those moments, a moment where humor, vulnerability, and human connection collided in the most unexpected way. And Jimin, standing there, watching it all unfold, became the mirror of what millions of fans were feeling at the exact same time. Shock, confusion, curiosity, but also something else, something softer, something more emotional. Because deep down, beyond the laughter, beyond the memes, beyond the viral edits, there was a quiet realization that even someone like Jungkook, someone who stands on the biggest stages in the world, is still human, still capable of moments that are awkward, unexpected, and beautifully real. And maybe that's exactly why this moment mattered so much. But what happened next, what Jimin did after that moment, and how fans reacted in ways no one predicted, that's where the story takes an even more unexpected turn. And trust me, you're not ready for what comes next. But what happened after that moment was something no one expected, because the silence didn't last forever, and when it broke, everything changed. Jimin didn't immediately laugh. He didn't clap or turn it into a joke like many would expect in a variety show setting. Instead, there was a brief pause, a moment where he simply watched Jungkook, carefully, almost as if he was reading him, trying to understand something deeper than what was happening on the surface. And then, slowly, his expression softened, not into laughter, but into something else, something warmer, something that felt protective. Because if you look closely at that moment, really closely, you begin to notice something that many people missed at first. Jimin wasn't just shocked, he was concerned. Not in a dramatic, panicked way, but in that quiet, subtle way that only someone who truly cares would show. And that's when fans started to connect the dots. Because this wasn't just about what was happening physically. It was about what it represented emotionally. Jungkook, the youngest, the golden magne, the one who has carried expectations since such a young age, sitting there, allowing himself to be still, to be vulnerable, to not react, and Jimin, watching him, processing it, feeling it in a way that only someone close could understand. It created a moment that felt almost intimate. Not in the way people often exaggerate or misunderstand, but in a deeply human way. A moment of quiet trust, a moment of unspoken connection. And suddenly, the internet wasn't just laughing anymore. They were feeling something. Something unexpected. As the clip continued to spread, reactions began to evolve. At first, it was all about the humor. Memes flooded social media, edits exaggerated the expressions, captions turned the moment into comedy gold. But then, something shifted. Fans began slowing the video down, rewatching it, analyzing every second. And that's when the tone changed. Comments started appearing that sounded different, more emotional, more reflective. People began saying things like, "I don't know why, but this feels deeper than just a joke." There's something about the way Jimin looks at Jungkook here. Why does this moment feel so soft? And that's when the real conversation began. Because in a world where everything is fast, loud, and constantly moving, Moments like this forced people to slow down. To observe, to feel, to think. And what they saw was something rare. Jungkook didn't perform in that moment, that he didn't act. He didn't try to entertain, that he simply existed, quietly, honestly. And that is something fans don't get to see very often. Because behind the performances, behind the perfection, behind the endless expectations, there is always a person. A real person. And sometimes, it takes the strangest, most unexpected situations to reveal that truth. Meanwhile, Choo Sung Hoon, who many initially saw as just part of the humor, also became part of the deeper discussion. Because his role in that moment wasn't aggressive, wasn't overwhelming. It was controlled, careful, almost respectful, and that added another layer to the story. Because now, it wasn't just about Jungkook and Jimin. It was about trust between all three of them. An unspoken agreement in that moment that everything was okay, that everything was safe. And perhaps that's why Jungkook didn't react. Because he didn't feel the need to. Because he trusted the situation. Because he felt comfortable enough to simply let it happen. And that realization changed everything. Suddenly, what seemed strange began to make sense. What seemed awkward began to feel meaningful, and what seemed random began to feel intentional in the most natural way possible. But then came the most unexpected part of all, the reaction of older fans. Not the ones who immediately jump into trends, not the ones who focus only on viral moments, but those who have followed Jungkook's journey for years, those who have seen him grow, those who remember the younger version of him, still learning, still adapting, still trying to find his place in a world that demanded so much from him. And their reaction was different. It wasn't loud. It wasn't exaggerated. It was quiet, emotional, some even described feeling a sudden wave of nostalgia, as if this moment reminded them of something they couldn't quite put into words. Because in that stillness, they saw a glimpse of the past, a glimpse of the younger Jungkook, the one who trusted easily, the one who followed the lead of others, the one who didn't always have to be strong. And for a brief moment, that version of him seemed to return, not fully, not completely, but just enough to be felt. And that's what made this moment unforgettable, not the action itself, not the humor, not even the shock, but the feeling, the quiet, unexpected, deeply human feeling that stayed with people long after the clip ended. And as Jimin finally reacted, whether through a small laugh, a comment, or simply a change in expression, it felt like the moment had come full circle, because in the end, nothing dramatic happened. No big reveal. No shocking twist. Just a simple, strange, beautiful moment shared between people who trust each other. And maybe that's exactly why it mattered so much. Because in a world full of noise, sometimes it's the quietest moments that speak the loudest. So now, I want to ask you something. When you watched that moment, what did you feel? Did you laugh? Did you feel confused? Or did you notice something deeper, something emotional, something that stayed with you even after the video ended? Because everyone saw the same moment, but not everyone felt the same thing. And that is what makes this story so powerful. So tell me in the comments, what do you think this moment really meant? And if you felt something while watching it, don't ignore it. Because sometimes the smallest moments reveal the biggest truths.